actually hear me? Okay, sounds good. Okay, apparently we're not streaming yet, so I gotta hold. I believe I see the recording live on YouTube, so we must be. I think we are. I see the red button going live on YouTube. So anyway, once again, if you're rejoining us from the last meeting, thank you. If you're just joining us for this elementary meeting, thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. We have members of Central Services here today. We have Alicia Kasuchi, and Alicia is our Director of Health and also our COVID compliance officer. So we thank her for all of her leadership. We have our principals from the elementary schools who are going to walk us through what the middle school, or sorry, what the elementary school policies, processes, schedules, so on, what teaching and learning looks like and health and safety looks like. I will say that in order to participate here, we are going to give you an email, which is, it'll come up on the first slide, so you don't need to write it down, but you'll see it come up. It's reopening@darrieannps.org, reopening@darrieannps.org. So once the principals have spoken to the program and we open it up for questions, just simply send those questions in. We'll read them out live, and we'll get to as many of them as we possibly can in just over an hour or so. And if there's any left, we will respond in kind to you and put it on the Darien website. I hope you find the website helpful, and we'll continue to revise and update as we go along. This is an opportunity to share what the program looks like, to hear from you, and also to answer your questions. So with that, I think I'm turning it over to Mary Michelson, who's going to lead us off. Thanks, Mary. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Would Luke, are you going to share your screen? Thank you very much. So today we are very excited to share our vision and our plan for the fall opening and the reopening of the schools. Right now you'll see that, you know, it's definitely a team. As principals and as central services, we meet daily to go over our plan to improve it and make it the best for our children and for our staff. Our next slide, this is the address that Dr. Adley was just referring to, and it's reopening@darrienps.org. Please send your questions to that, and at the end of our presentation, we will go over your questions and hopefully answer everything. Today we have all of the principals are here to share their information. Paul Blakely from Holmes. Let's see, Luke Forshaw from Ox Ridge, Garen Mullen from Royal, and Julie Droller from Hindley. So at this time, Paula, please start us out with our model.
Thank you, Mary. What I'd like to share with you today is the overview of the different blocks of the day that our students will be participating in while they're in school. These are general blocks. The schedule itself will be developed for each class. However, these are blocks that all students will experience while in school. The first block is the morning meeting, and this is a time when students will gather to build community, talk about issues relating specifically to their class, and there will be some work to help support students with social and emotional learning. Our students in school will be part of that meeting at school, and students who are working remotely will connect to the morning meeting via Zoom live. Following our morning meeting, we will have read aloud daily. That's a big base part of our elementary literacy curriculum. So the teacher will lead an interactive read aloud where she will involve the students in the class while she's reading. She will involve both the students who are in school as well as the students who are listening via Zoom. And so there will be an opportunity for all students to be involved during that part of the day. At that point in time, we will move into instructional blocks. There will be instructional blocks for reading, writing, word study, math, science, social studies. However, at the beginning, especially, we will be giving priority to literacy and math instruction. During the instructional blocks, there will be explicit instruction from the teacher where modeling will happen, and then we will move into either small group or independent practice. That's very similar to what we do every day in school pre-COVID. In this model, students in school will continue with that exact model. The students at home instead will watch a brief instructional video of the similar content that's being taught at school, and they will be provided with an assignment to work on independently at home, and at times may be invited into small group sessions while they're in school. The next block is called the differentiated instruction block. And this is a time when there is targeted instruction that's provided for students, either who need additional support, students who need intervention, students who need reinforcement in a specific area, and or students who might need enrichment. This specialized instruction has been occurring in our school schedule prior to school closure, and we will continue to use this model as we move into either hybrid or in-person or remote learning. Students in school will continue to either work independently or participate in small groups during this time, and students who are home will participate in small groups via Zoom or may also check in with their teacher independently during that time. Lunch and recess. Students who are in school will eat lunch in their classrooms. If students order lunch through the school lunch program, those lunches will be delivered to the classrooms. And then students will go outside for recess. And recess, our recess situation will be that on our playgrounds, we will have designated zones for each class. And each class will be in one zone as a class while they're outside for recess on a specific day. And then the next day they'll move to a new zone. So there may be 4 or 5 zones at each school, and the students will rotate through those zones so that they are staying with their cohort while they're outside and can be 6 feet apart and take their masks off. If there's inclement weather, we will need to have recess inside. And so we will come up with activities that students can do in their classrooms. If students are working remotely, they will have a break for lunch and for free play while they are at home. If your student does need to pick up a school lunch, they will be available for pickup even if you are working home remotely. And then the last few blocks of the day include the specials. So we will continue to have specials as part of our curriculum. They are an essential part of our curriculum. So students will still have art, music, physical education, world language, and library media. Students in school will participate in those specials either in their classroom or in a classroom that is much larger, like the cafeteria. And then students at home will be participating either through live streaming or Zoom, or there may be posted activities in Google Classroom or Seesaw. And the last part of the day is called Closing Circle. And this is a time when teachers and students can reflect together and celebrate on things that occurred throughout the day, and also have a preview of what might be coming the next day. And it's another opportunity for students to connect socially and to build community in the classroom. And students at school will join this activity in the school classroom. And students who are home will have the opportunity to participate from home. So that's a brief description of the blocks of the day, so you know what to expect. And now I think I'm turning it over to Garen, I think. Yes, Dr. Mullen.
Thanks. Thank you, Paula. Hi, everyone. I'm going to touch on some of our frequently asked questions, but before I begin, I will just repeat again that we have a frequently asked questions section on the reopening page. We are continuing to add to that. So with each of these sections, as we get questions. For example, we just had our health and wellness session. All of those questions we're answering, and we're posting those on the FAQ section on the reopening page as well. So make sure that you check that out. I'm just going to touch briefly on some of the larger questions that we've had, but certainly more information is available on the FAQs. And if you have specific questions, just reach out to your building principal. In terms of health and safety, as you know, we are requiring face coverings, masks for all students and staff in the building. Certainly, if there's a medical exemption, please reach out and we can work through that with you. There'll be increased hand washing and hand sanitization within the school. Many of our classrooms at the elementary level do have sinks in them. We'll be using those for hand washing throughout the day, when students arrive at school, before and after lunch, after recess, anytime that students' hands are visibly soiled. We also have some portable hand washing stations for any rooms that did not have sinks in them, and there'll be hand sanitization stations throughout the school. We've talked a lot about the illness and absences in that last health and wellness section, and certainly that information will be posted to the website. But I just wanted to highlight a little take-home point that Dr. Kennefick brought up at our last meeting, which is that we really have to all work together on this, in continuing our social distancing in the community, in continuing to work together to make sure that we're engaging in physical distancing is really going to be our best bet in terms of keeping our numbers as low as they are. When kids are showing symptoms, even mild symptoms, we really ask that you keep your child home so that we can make sure that they are safe to return to school and that we don't have a larger issue should they become more symptomatic, or should anything else arise in terms of an illness. We do encourage parents to regularly check your child's temperature at home to make sure that their temperature is okay to come to school. And just as we're coming back to school and thinking about whether or not kids are safe to return to school, we will not be able to accept a negative test after traveling. In order for kids to return to school, there is the mandatory quarantine period after visiting some states, and we do require that families engage in that mandatory quarantine period if you visited a state that's on that list per our governor's executive order. We will be engaging in physical distancing within the school. During the hybrid model, many of our classrooms will be able to achieve that 6-foot distancing with half of our students in the school and half students at home. Once all of our students return to school on September 29th, we will be able to achieve a 3-foot distance between students. For some students that are sitting at tables instead of desks, we have plexiglass put up in order to have each student have their own workstation. And again, students will be wearing masks, and our teachers have been provided PPE to wear during the day to make sure that we're maintaining everything in terms of safety protocols. Getting to and from school, we are encouraging that parents do transport your children to school. You'll be receiving specific information from your building principal about arrival and dismissal procedures. So please keep an eye out. We are going to be very specific in terms of how arrival and dismissal works, just so we can make sure that we're spacing kids out as much as possible and we're keeping everyone safe. Masks are required on school buses. We will encourage kids to sit as much as they can, one to a seat or with their sibling. That would be the best way to achieve social distancing and make sure that we're kind of keeping kids within cohorts that they are already in. Another major change at the elementary level is that there won't be morning recess until further notice. We can't maintain that at the elementary school due to the number of kids and the proximity that they would be within each other. So that's why I say you'll get information specific from your building principal about arrival and dismissal procedures. And we ask that you keep an eye out and really attend to that. Lunch this year will also be a little bit different. We will be using the NutriSlice app. I know that Dr. Adley has sent some information out to you about this already, but this is going to be an app that you can use to pre-order lunch. And you can actually do this up to a week in advance. The online pay system, K-12 payment system, is still going to be the same. So we're not changing the payment system for lunch. But in order to actually order lunch, kids won't be able to do that when they arrive at school. I'm going to say that again because this is going to be really important for us to all work together on. Previous to this, kids would come into school and let us know what they wanted for their ordered school lunch. That will not be able to happen this year. We need all parents to pre-order school lunches for their children. You can go on to the NutriSlice app up to a week in advance, view the menu for each day, and you can order lunch up until 7:30 in the morning of. These lunches are going to be prepackaged cold lunch options through October 31st. That's what we've been notified by our new vendor Chartwells that they will be doing. Lunch will be eaten in the classroom, and all classrooms in the school will be peanut and nut free. You're going to continue to receive communication from the district, from Dr. Adley and Mr. Tranberg and Ms. Klein. You'll also continue to receive communication from your building principal as we get more information regarding what the reopening plans will look like. Like I was just saying, specifically arrival, dismissal, anything else you need to know that's building specific, you'll get from your building principal. The last piece that I want to touch on is technology. We're continuing with Chromebooks this year at the elementary level. Students will be issued their Chromebook when they return to school. I know that many of you have gotten emails from Jeff Adams or your principal asking you if you still have your Chromebook to return it to central office. We ask that you do that if you still have been hanging on to your Chromebook so that we can update all of them and reissue them back to the schools so that we're ready to go for the first day. On that first day of school, Thursday the 3rd, our students with last names L through Z will receive their Chromebooks. The next day, our students A through K will be able to distribute those throughout the classrooms by the classroom teacher. We will be sending information out to families on how to access the different platforms that we'll be using, refresh your memory on Google Classroom and all of those things that we know were difficult to get up and running in the spring, so that everybody feels comfortable and confident logging on and getting access to what they need in terms of being able to get online with their class and access any materials that they need. So don't worry, all of that information is coming out to you. Certainly, if you have questions, just let us know. And I think that is it for the FAQs. And just like I said at the beginning, that FAQ section on the reopening site is really where you can find a wide range of information, including all of the questions that are being asked during these different sessions that we're running. This is just a screenshot of that NutriSlice.com application. It's off of the Darien Public Schools website. You'll go to darienps.nutrislice.com/menu, select your school, and then you'll be able to see the menu, like I said, up to a week in advance. This is where you can pre-order your child's lunch. I'm going to turn it over to Julie. Ms. Droller.
Thanks, Garen. Good afternoon, everybody. So as you know, when we open with a hybrid model, Group A, students with the last name of A through K will go to school on Monday and Wednesday, and Group B, students with surnames of L through Z will attend Tuesday and Thursday, and Friday will be remote half day for students and professional development for teachers. However, it looks a little bit different in our first few days of school to allow for an equitable distribution of learning time. So on Thursday, September 3rd, Group B will attend school for a half day, and the times are listed. Early schools 8:25 to 12:20 to 12:55, and our late schools 9 o'clock to 1:30 p.m. Lunch will be served on the first day of school, beginning then. On Friday, September 4th, Group A will attend, those children with surnames of A through K. The early schools, again, same dismissal times as before, and lunch will be served. The only students that will attend on these first 2 days are students that are going to be participating in our hybrid model in school. Those that are doing remote learning will not, because these first 2 days are half days. We want to acclimate students to our new health and safety procedures. What will school look like and feel like now? How will kids wear masks? When will they wash their hands? How will they socially distance? What will it look like to walk through the hallways? So all of those logistics we'll be spending time on in our first 2 days. The following week, the week of September 7th through 11th, because Monday is Labor Day, we'll have a full day of school for Group B on Tuesday and Thursday. Group A will be remote on those days. And then on Wednesday and Friday, Group A will be in school, those students with surnames of A through K, and Group B will be remote. After that, on the weeks of September 14th through September 21st, we will go back to the hybrid model that I talked about. Group A will, the surnames of A through K will attend on Monday and Wednesday. They will be remote on Tuesday and Thursday. Group B, surnames of L through Z will attend on Tuesday, Thursday. They will be remote on Monday and Wednesday, and all students and staff will be remote on Friday. It will be an early dismissal day for students. That will allow us to clean our buildings. And now I'm Luke Forshore. Dr. Forshore is going to talk about a sample daily schedule at the elementary level.
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is, we're elementary teachers, right? So we want to repeat. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take what Ms. Blakely talked about earlier in terms of the blocks, those pieces of our day, and just flesh it out with some time so you can really get your head around kind of what's a day in the life of my child look like. We spent a good deal of time really considering how to make this schedule work for learners in school and work for learners at home, and being very well aware of the developmental needs of our elementary school students. How can we make this as user-friendly as possible for families and caregivers who are going to be supporting those remote learners? So let me walk you through the pieces of the day, and I'll kind of think aloud for you around some of the logic as to why we've given, as Ms. Blakely talked about, opportunities for kids at home to log in during certain parts of the day. We're trying to keep this simple and consistent and doable for everybody as the year begins and certainly as it progresses. So as you might already know, we have early schools and late schools. Hindley, Royal, and Tokenique start their day a bit earlier to allow for busing, and then Holmes and Oxford start a bit later. So when you see these column early and late, that is simply just designating what the start and end time are. I think we're familiar with that. Just want to repeat it for those families who are new to the system. So every morning we're going to arrive and check in students. We are very mindful of the fact that, as one of my colleagues mentioned, we're no longer doing, I think it was Garen, we're no longer doing that morning recess time, unfortunately. So what we are going to do is have classroom teachers ready in their classrooms to receive children as they are either dropped off or they're coming off the bus. You will always have adults outside in the morning directing that flow of students coming into the building, and we're going to ask those students to come right in and right to their classroom. We want that time to be meaningful when students arrive, so they're going to check in with their teacher, begin some independent work in the classroom, maybe do some catch up and the like. So that first chunk of the day is really just welcoming in everyone calmly, safely to their classrooms. Every morning we have a morning meeting and a read aloud block, as Ms. Blakely talked about. That time is going to be that community building opportunity. It's also the opportunity for some literacy instruction. As a parent, you can log, if my child's home on that day, that's a point in the day that I can get them onto Zoom, right? So you can start to plan out your day as a parent. I can get them online for the morning meeting. I can get them online for the read aloud. And that just helps you kind of organize your day as well. The instructional blocks, well, I'm just giving a sample here of what the duration looks like. They're going to be specifically tailored to each grade level, but they're going to be, these are those points of the day where we're teaching: reading, writing, word study, foundations, and the like. The DI block, another important thing to know as a parent, is the DI block will be consistent on a grade level. We're going to try to work to have the schedule say all third graders in a given school have the DI block at 10:35. So that you as a parent know 10:35, if my child is home that day, I can support them by getting them onto their Zoom. They'll always have a point of time when they're remote that they can contact that classroom teacher. The classroom teacher might pull for some small group instruction, and you as a parent can kind of manage your, the varying roles we're all playing now in the new normal by knowing that that given time on the day is a time I can help them connect to their class. Special periods, as mentioned, all the special areas, we're going to have a 45-minute block with a rotation so that children still have access to those specials. As I already mentioned, there's a recess period, there's a lunch period, as is typical each year. You might notice, if you're really keen to look at the numbers and minutes in our schedule for those families who have been with us a while, we have increased the lunch and recess allocation a little bit. That's to make sure that we're following all the hygiene protocols and the social distancing requirements. So we have a nice orderly way for kids to get clean and travel to and from location. That's going to be one of the themes of this schedule, that we want to make sure that there's a little bit of time in between sessions so that kids can and teachers can, in an orderly, safe way, get kids around the building, make sure they can practice those good hygiene habits. There's always instructional blocks in the afternoon, and as was previously mentioned, an opportunity for closing circle. Closing circle is optional for families at home, so if your child is at home and wants to log into that closing circle, that's great. We're not going to be as stringent in requiring that closing circle attendance. Just again, we're being sensitive to families and caregivers at home, trying to manage your children at home, getting them on and off the platform more than 2 times a day seemed a bit of an ask. So closing circles available, not as required. You'll notice our dismissal time in the same way. We're welcoming students in a little bit more of a stepped out fashion. Our dismissal procedures will get updated to make sure that kids are leaving directly from their classrooms, coming right out to cars, coming right out to buses in an orderly way. And that's a little bit of a preview of our schedule. As my colleagues have mentioned, more specificity is to come. Stay tuned to your email for summer mailing. That'll have all that information about your classroom teacher and the like, and certainly more information about your schedule will come from your child's classroom teacher once the year kicks off in full. And I think to round us out, we're going to wrap up with Ms. Michelson to talk a little bit about the resources still available and just wrap us up for the day.
So if, actually we can go to the next slide. So the very important reopening site on the Darien website, you will find it has more information than maybe you need to know, but I think it's very informative. And if you have a question, you should be able to find the answer for it on that. If you see it's on the top screen, you can see where it's way over to the right, you click on reopening, and then it's the Darien's reopening plan. It has all the different topics, and the FAQs are going to be right down there on the bottom, and you can click on it. And the FAQs we're working on continually adding new questions that people have asked with answers. So personally, I think this is a great spot to look. Also, it has all of Dr. Adley's communications from the spring. We've added our communications just from the fall, not from the spring, but this will be updated. So when you receive a letter from Dr. Adley or from the elementary school principals, you'll able to access it a lot easier. If you want to just go to this reopening site, it's right there and you just click on it and it will be magically there. So at this time, we would love to take any questions from you. And again, it was reopening@darienps.org. Is that right from my memory? Ooh. So please ask your questions.
So we have about 60 questions that have come in, and many of them have multiple questions in each email. So we'll work our way through what we can. What we don't get to today, we will, over the next couple of days, respond in email, and we'll also update our FAQ on the website if those responses aren't already reflected there. So the first question is from Zainab Tafafrosh, and it is, how will students opting for remote learning be able to receive live instruction versus slides? And I can start with that and invite the principals to jump in. But by design, with the components of the day that Ms. Blakely shared, there are those times morning meeting, the DI block where there would be some type of a small group connection, and the optional closing circle would be the same opportunities for students that are remote learners. And we also have slides, and the slides aren't flat, meaning that there isn't actually a person that's narrating. A teacher is associated with those slides, so they can receive the instruction there. And then we will talk further. This would be more individualized on how we would manage assessments for any student. But I invite anyone to elaborate if they would like to.
I would just add to that students throughout a designated time during the day may be meeting with the classroom teacher individually or in a small group. If the student receives special education services or SRBI services, they would also be receiving those as well through other times during the day.
Thank you. The next question is from David Herbers. I believe the main benefit of having at least some in-person school is the social interaction with teachers, staff, and other students. In a time of prioritizing social distancing, how will students be able to benefit from these social interactions? At recess, are kids supposed to just stand 6 feet apart from everyone else? What about PE? Are teachers going to be able to come over to a student's desk and review their work, answer questions, and provide guidance? Or is there going to be physical or imaginary border between the teacher and the students without any crossing over?
So we're going to be doing lots of professional learning together this year. We're definitely on an adventure about how do we maintain the social distancing requirements, wearing our PPE, and particularly at the elementary level, still having that very humane, nurturing connection that we are known for. So we'll be working on all of those elements that you've asked around. How do you get in close to a student, help coach while maintaining your own safety? We follow guidance as we get it issued to us, and we have lots of professional learning days to work out the exact how of how we're going to do that. But our intention is to maintain really good educational practice, to support those connections between teachers and students, and do it in a way that's safe.
Thank you. The next question is from Aaron Eblin. It is my understanding that children taking the bus to school in the morning could be up to 20 minutes late to the classroom, but the teacher will not wait for the students to be in class to begin the day. How will we know if our children are the late ones, as 20 minutes late twice a week will start to add up?
I can jump in on that. We have built in a period of time at the beginning of school to allow for bus arrival, to allow for hand washing, to allow for all sorts of kinds of social emotional need to be done with students. So there is some built-in time before we start the morning meeting and academic instruction when students will be getting set up. So that should accommodate for late bus arrivals and other things like that.
Thank you. The next question is from Kristen Mosca, and it's related to tables and not desks. So for classrooms that do not have separate desks, how will the group tables work in the hybrid model and the full-time model?
I can speak to that. So in the hybrid model, just as a function of having about half of the class in the classroom, there would be half of the students at the table. So for instance, if it was a table that would seat 4 students with a X plexiglass shield, separating the table into 4 different work areas, there might be 2 students at that table or 1 student at that table during the hybrid model. And then maybe 3 to 4 students at that table once we are back into the full reopen, depending on the number of students in that classroom and the size of the tables.
Thank you. And there was also a part to that question regarding, do all schools have classrooms with tables? And yes, there are classrooms with tables at all of the schools. The next question is from Fernanda Kehoe. How will it be determined whether schools have to go 100% remote? Is it the number of cases in the town, et cetera?
I'll jump in on that one. At this time, there's not a specific number of cases or percentage. It will be based on a lot of different information that we're gathering, whether it's by school, what we're seeing if infection rates in schools, or what we're seeing infection rates across the district, or what's happening in Fairfield County, or what's happening in the state. And a lot of that has to do with how our medical systems are able to accommodate people who are sick. If we're seeing an increase in hospitalizations and utilization of hospital rooms that for COVID, that might be an indicator as well. So unfortunately, there's no specific answer to that question. It'll be putting together a lot of different information, and we'll be consulting very closely with David Knopf from the health department and Dr. Kennefick, our medical advisor, as a district to decide if and when we need to close the schools.
Dr. Evie, you're muted.
Just to build on that, the data suggests that we should be back full time at this point. But we've decided to go with the hybrid to allow the kids to do the transition, make them feel comfortable, test the system. It's also supported by the medical advisor and our health director. And there are metrics there, and we'll continue to look at those, as Alicia said, on a weekly basis.
Thank you. And to be fully transparent, some of these have multiple questions. I'm just selecting one of the questions that has not been addressed and relates to the most people in the room. This is from Irene Caro. And the question is, will students and teachers have 6 feet during hybrid mode since there will be less children? Can that be confirmed?
So at this time, with the hybrid model, you're going to have half of the amount of children in the classroom. And so we have measured the classroom. So right now, when we go full in, there'll be 3 feet in between the students and the teacher. But in the hybrid model, we will have 6 feet in between each of the desks for the students and the teacher.
Thank you. Next question is from Daniel Buke. There were several mentions of HVAC and AC units in various meetings, along with their filters and cleaning. I am a Holmes parent and know that not every room had AC or similar in years past. Is each room now outfitted with at least a window AC or some other venting airflow system?
I'll certainly let Mike Lynch jump in if he needs to, but I can say that all of the classrooms do have air conditioners or some type of air filtration. And we are currently, I know Mr. Lynch is going around checking every classroom to make sure that the air circulation is appropriate.
Thank you. The next question is from Marie Lucas. How will the days when kindergarten students are home work? Is it expected they will be able to independently remotely learn like other students, or will there be accommodations made for the younger age group?
So the general layout of the day is the same for all of the different grades at elementary school. That being said, we're exploring a number of different platforms that are more kind of younger student friendly in order to enhance that experience of what things look like when they're posted for our youngest students to engage in at home. We certainly know that the learning curve is going to be a little bit different for our kindergartners as opposed to our students that were already using some of these platforms in the spring. So we'll be working with our teachers to help our kindergartners and our younger learners, K through 2, understand how to access those platforms when they're in school with their teacher to try to help streamline that once they're home.
Thank you. The next question is from Kay Everdell. For children starting kindergarten, when will they pick up their laptops and will they receive instruction from the school on how to use them? I can answer that one. Yes, they will receive instruction from the school on how to use them. And in a meeting earlier today, our Director of Systems Technology said information will be coming out soon about device readiness. So stay tuned on that. This is from P. Byrne Posey. There has been some news about a proposal for delaying the start of the school until mid-September. Do we anticipate a potential calendar change, or should parents, especially working parents, begin to plan based on the current calendar? Thank you.
So I would say everybody should plan on the current calendar. However, with the caveat that we're fully intended to come back on September 29th. If the metrics stay the same the way they are, there would be no, well, I'll say no reason, but it's very likely, and we're planning to come back. But everybody's learning something every day here, so things could go south quickly, and then we have a different scenario that we got to look like. So I don't want to. I'm saying 29th based on what the information is today, what it was last week, and it looks like that we can come back, and we'll be able to come back if that continues to be the trend. So I just can't say like the calendar would never change in terms of when we come back or go into, or all kids go remotely. As of now, that's what the plan is, and we hope to follow that plan.
Thank you. Jessica Shu is asking if we are switching from Google Meet to Zoom. And the answer to that is yes, we are switching from Google Meet to Zoom. Zoom has more features and more options with security. So we'll be using all virtual meetings will be through Zoom. There's a question from Lara Doggett regarding the percentage of students returning. For those that weren't in the last meeting, we have about 93%. Based on the current amount of families who have responded that are returning. There's a question about by school, and we just don't have that information yet, but we'll have it to principals tomorrow. The next question is from Alicia Johnson. Are there brands of masks that are recommended for elementary school students? And can we get an answer on whether net gaiters are going to be allowed given the recent research demonstrating they are not effective in stopping viral spread?
So to answer that, there's no specific brand that we are recommending. I think for compliance, especially with young kids, we're asking that you try a few different kinds. The best one is one that your child will wear consistently. So if you can, try a few different ones out and find one that they like, buy a few of them. A suggestion was made to send at least an extra one for a child to, after lunch, they can put on a clean mask. And that way they're not worried if they've turned it inside out or upside down or whatever. They can have the same mask, just a clean version for after lunch. And as far as the net gaiters are concerned, that's been discussed at the state level, and we are still waiting for guidance. That research came out last week, and then it was debunked. So there's a lot of questions around net gaiters. My thought on the net gaiter is, as long as you can double up the material, you want it to be at least 2 layers. Then we might be able to do that, but that's with the caveat that we're still waiting for more information and guidance.
Next question is from Allison Palmieri. What is the expectation for kindergarteners who have never met their teachers or classmates, have never used any distance learning material, and who cannot read? How are they supposed to participate remotely, especially when parents need to work and don't have access to additional help or childcare?
So I can take that question. We are planning a kindergarten orientation, and we'll send more information about that. And as Dr. Mullen said, we are exploring other platforms that are more user-friendly to our youngest learners, and we will provide video instructions for how to use them. Also, something that was very successful last year, we found, was more small group instruction with our younger learners.
Next question is from Aaron Lumpkin. If a student is required to stay home due to known exposure, classroom exposure, or family member exposure, will they just follow the remote learning curriculum for 10 to 14 days?
Yes. Yeah. In our frequently asked questions, we did note that if a child needs to stay home because they're sick, our practice has always been that kids need to recover and they should, be home, and we're not sending work home for kids that are sick. But if kids are home because they need to quarantine or they've had an exposure, or they're being kept home out of an abundance of caution, please notify the school so that we can make sure that we're tracking our absences appropriately, and that student can still participate in remote learning. It's not an absence.
Yeah, the next question is from Laura Kletter. What is the rationale for allowing children and their teachers to eat lunch in the classroom when they are spaced 3 feet apart or sitting together at a cafeteria table at the middle school?
So we are trying to, ideally we would do it 6 feet apart, but we're just trying to mitigate the distancing as best we can. And when we are in the hybrid mode, that's obviously a lot easier. But we're back in full mode. Honestly, we're doing the best we can in that scenario, and students will have to stay apart. Staff members will do the best to keep distancing, hand washing, PPEs. It's our best effort under this particular scenario.
Next question is from Raul Scherwitzel. For parents that cannot help out the child remotely at home, what do you recommend for a first grader to successfully follow the school classroom?
We'll be sending home a lot of information in terms of how to, best set up access at home. And we'll also be working with students when they're in school so we can make kids, our younger learners, as independent as possible. One of the things that we recommended in the spring that I think our younger learners found to be helpful was having their schedule written out or posted out so that kids were able to follow it on their own as well. We certainly know that this presents a challenge for families, and we will make it as user-friendly as possible by doing as much training as we can in school and sending as much home as we can.
And just to build on that, two other thoughts. One is that the teaching and learning kind of framework here is going to be when students are getting new instruction when they're present. We know that that's sort of the gold standard of learning. And so when they're online, we're designing the instruction, which is new for this year, to be an opportunity for them to practice what they've gotten some initial face-to-face instruction around that next day. The video upgrades, as Mr. Tranberg noted, are going to be much more live and interactive than they were in the previous year. And then we're also trying to make that schedule very clear and transparent for families around what are the opportunities for students to connect live with their classmates and teachers, so that it becomes easier for young students and for families to know exactly when they can get their child online and exactly what the child needs to be doing to stay in the groove. So we're really trying to be thoughtful about those remote days and improve based on what we learned from the spring.
And I'm going to add a little old-fashioned carrying on to this too. It's not all about the technology. Children in elementary school are all children, all human beings need structure. And what we found in the spring are the children that had the structure and the families that had the structure set up at home, like school starts at 8:30 or school starts at 9, they have a desk to work at. These are the expectations for the family. And so not waking up and having the Chromebook in bed with them, but actually at their desk, having some routine, having lunch when lunchtime is, having recess, and ending the day. Structuring your day for those remote days or for every day if you're remote is so important and so vital. So I would say for all the families that had gone through it last spring, look at what they did. Was it fabulous? Was it, or is there some tweaking that you need to do as a family to figure out what's going to work best for you and your family? And for our incoming kindergartners, we will really go through that with parents too, to explain how this is going to look and how it can look like school. Our littlest learners are going to need somebody near them to work. You can't just give them the Chromebook to say, go in and work for the next 10 minutes. They don't know what 10 minutes is. So, just really structure. That's what they need. They need to have their snacks. They need to have breaks, and continue through the day. And I'll get off my soapbox.
Next question is from Jen Keating. If remote learning is meant to be equitable, why is daily instructional blocks done in isolation? Why can't remote students observe via Zoom, as in the morning meeting, etc., so they are able to ask live questions with teachers versus watching a video and problem solving independently?
So again, we're really keen to look at the developmental needs of elementary school students, and our knowing what kids need as learners at this age. We want them to have an opportunity to have synchronous interaction with their teacher versus simply attending to a live stream and hoping that they can get some interaction. So we're really looking at that deep differentiation block as a time of day that the teacher can set up time, like an open office hour, where this child can just drop in on a Zoom, ask questions, clarify. The teachers can set up small group instructional opportunities or one-on-one conferring. All of that does not preclude a teacher from, in addition to that DI block, setting up other small group opportunities for students. So she might say to a group of learners in her class as the year progresses and to their families, I also would like to see you for our math period for Tuesday, Thursday this week, so we can just check in. So I do anticipate that as people become more comfortable with the technology, with the way that we're reconfiguring the curriculum to support this learning model, that you'll see more synchronous learning. We just think that that is the best way to get elementary age students learning versus simply live streaming and accessing, where older students might be more successful with that kind of model.
So I think what we heard last year was, can we define, do our best to define what the live instruction looked like and what independent work looked like. So this was our efforts at doing that at a developmental level as a sort of, if you want to call it a minimum sort of standard or practice.
Next question is from Michael Nardi. With the news of the new FDA-approved saliva test for COVID that is cheap, non-invasive with instant results and being utilized by the NBA and WNBA, will the district consider using this test to test students and staff before they enter school? it would seem like a way to get all the children safely into the schools full time while being able to instantly identify students and staff who are positive.
I think Dr. Kennebec answered that question earlier, but basically, right now the answer is no. We aren't doing any universal testing of students or staff. You know, over time, as things have changed, there could be a possibility for doing that in the future. But at this time, testing asymptomatic people is not suggested, and that's due to the fact that the testing is only good for the moment that you are testing, and you could be asymptomatic and not be producing enough of the antigen or RNA to be detected. So you could be fine at that moment, and then 2 days later you could start having symptoms. So it's not a good indicator of whether or not you're infectious, and it's only good for that very moment in time. So at this time we aren't doing that. That could change depending on the availability and ease of testing and the ability for those tests to be specific enough to be able to pick up early cases.
The next question is from Carolyn Hurst. What is the difference between live stream and live Zoom? And I can answer that one. There really isn't one. We're using them interchangeably. There is a difference though. Zoom does things other than just live stream as a full class. They have features like breakout sessions, so students can be in small groups as well. So you might hear live stream, live Zoom, and breakout sessions as the new vocabulary as we navigate the new year. This is from Catherine Friend. The recent Duke University study showed that microfiber masks or neck gaiters actually multiply. And I think we did answer that in this session, right? This is the question about gaiters and that new study. So I will move on to the next question. And the answer to that was we're waiting for more information. The next question is from Trisha Niesensen. Will the kids have to wear masks during outdoor recess?
I think for recess, we're trying to maintain a 6-foot distance, and so and they're outdoors, so we will be allowing them to take a mask break at that time. Principals, do you have anything more to add to that?
Okay, I'll move on. The next question is from Amy Myrano. Sorry about the pronunciation. That's a lot of vowels together. When will kindergarten orientation happen and how will it work this year? Will parents still be involved?
Julie, got it.
We'll be sending something home to parents, but we will, so students with last names of L through Z will have their orientation on Thursday, September 3rd, and students with last names of A through K will have their orientation on Friday, September 4th, and we will be sending information to parents. Parents will not be involved because we are trying to have only our students and faculty in the building.
The next question is from Abby Knott. Should children bring their Chromebooks to school when they are attending in person, or will Chromebooks only be used during remote e-learning days?
Yes, they're going to be bringing them back and forth because we're trying to teach them how to use them appropriately when they're in school, and we'll be doing some lessons in school, so they have to know how to use them, and then they'll be taking them home, going back and forth.
Next question is from Jean Anderson. If Fridays are reserved for school building cleaning, does that mean the schools will not be cleaned and sanitized Monday through Thursday?
Nope, they'll be sanitized every day, multiple times a day. But we will do some additional cleaning over the weekends.
Next question is from Kristen. What is remote learning going to look like if we have to go remote? Will it still be slides or will there be live teaching all day?
So we will be following the same schedule that we will follow in our hybrid model. So students will be live for certain periods of the day, and there'll be a combination of asynchronous and synchronous learning.
Next question is from Jennifer Russo. What is being done to protect student privacy in the hybrid model, especially what my child does and says in the classroom is broadcast to everyone at home?
So I think it's fair to say that we got legal counsel on to try and ensure that we don't compromise those practices, and staff will be instructed during the professional development days of how to manage those scenarios. And we're going to lean on parents too. We simply just need people's help along the way in that capacity as well. And we'll share a wee bit like we did last year, some expectations, the way you can support not only your children, but also the staff, and so that we don't compromise those processes.
Next question is from Radhika Kadiri. The question is, I got a survey for picking complete remote or hybrid model. If I choose complete remote, does that mean my child can e-learn all the time? There is a hybrid offering and must return to school when the school reopens for full-time in person on September 29th.
You actually, I would like you to return on the 29th. You don't technically have to. So you can choose the option of, right now we're in the hybrid model, and should you want to stay home, I feel the need for that. You can certainly do that with your child, and I would encourage you where you can to bring them in the model, but I certainly have to respect, and the State Department of Education has provided that provision for families. So whether you do it now or whether you decide to do the hybrid now, and then when everybody's all in, perhaps you're not all in, and you want to do the opt-out at that point. I know I'm talking to a lot of people here, so you'll forgive me if I say I'm not encouraging that option per se, but I'm also just being honest with what the options are.
Next is Kelly Kane. Will a child be assigned the same teacher whether they are learning remotely or in person?
Yes, they'll have the same teacher in any scenario, any and all scenarios.
Thank you. Dr. Adley, we're over time right now. Would you like to keep going with questions?
If people could just bear with us for another few questions. Yeah, let's do another few questions if we can.
This is from Irene Cairo. What about the worksheets, materials, art, etc. that kids bring home? Is that being quarantined? Curious how that will be handled.
I will say I spoke with an infectious disease specialist about passing of papers, and her answer to me was that they pass papers all the time in the office, and that's not really the primary route of transmission. And Dr. Kennefick also echoed that earlier, that it's not surfaces where people are getting COVID from, it's from respiratory droplets. So we aren't as concerned about paper being passed. Good hand washing practices should help mitigate that some. So.
Next is Megan Pasvankias. Thank you for taking questions. What is the threshold for cases or criteria that would cause us not to go back to in-person 5 days a week at the end of September?
Did I hear the question right? Would not go back full time?
So what would have to change with the data for us not to be able to go full-time on September 29th?
We would nearly need to have about 5 times the amount of cases that we have now. So if there was like 3 in the last, don't quote me, I haven't looked at the most recent one, but the last time we looked at it, there was just under 3 per day, for the 14 days. You'd have to go up to 14 cases at least. And then thereafter, to be full out, it would be 35 cases. So you've got quite a significant jump. You would have to see a change in the data. And that's just looking at the data, not taking anything else under consideration.
Next question is from Ilka Gashi. And Dr. Edley, we did touch on this, but I would say it's one of the most common ones that we hear. Is it possible to opt out from one option to another if we decide to send our kid back to school in person for the hybrid so she can meet the teacher and her new classmates? Can we change from the in-person option to remote after the hybrid period is over?
I'm really not encouraging people to hopscotch around. In some ways, I can't prevent it. We're trying to be reasonable in terms of what notification we would require. We would like to require at least 72 hours notice. That seems to be reasonable. It's just not going to be helpful to go into school today just to, I think, meet a teacher, come back out again. I'd actually ask us not to do that. I'd ask us to commit to whatever model you want to commit to for the period of time you want to commit to it as far as you can. I think that would be most helpful, probably to your child and also to the staff. But the bottom answer is you can jump in, but we just don't want people jumping in and out.
This is Michelle Mangwal. What changes are being made to non-busing drop-off and pickup? How will students be distanced? Is anything being done to improve traffic flow if more families have opted out of bus transport?
It's important for each family to take a look at that summer mailing that's going to come your way in August. Each school, based on our own traffic kind of flow, is going to be analyzing the best way to keep our flow moving and to make sure that students are getting out of their car or their bus in a safe way. So stay tuned for more specific information from your respective building later this month.
I also think, just to add on to that, is we are going to be learning day by day with the traffic patterns. And again, coming in half and half is really going to help us with that, because we are changing the beginning of the day. There isn't going to be that flexible time you can drop off your child at any time. It's going to be pretty much of a specific time to drop off. So I believe you're going to be seeing all the principals out there directing traffic, or the assistant principal, somebody out there. And so just to help, if you can read through the instructions, that's going to be the most helpful.
Next is Laura Pesh-Gray. Is closing circle, are children really going to get on the floor, on the carpet in a circle? How does this physically look?
It will not be with kids in a circle in proximity. As much as we like that one someday, right? That's our vision for the future. But no, we're going to be, it's more in spirit that we're having an opportunity for kids to reflect, talk as a group, come together as a community, but not in a physically distant and safe way.
This is Angela Boyle Alto. During the hybrid model, will there be half the number of desks with kids sharing desks or on alternating days, or will they be seated at their permanent desks?
Children will be, we will have all the desks in the classroom because it would be too challenging to take them all out and put them in storage and put them back. But children will be seated every other desk, so they will have their same desk for the year or for a period of time.
Just to add on to that, that will also help kids know what to do and where to be when they do return to school full time, especially in the younger grades where this is going to be a lot different.
Next is Makela Tanito. For those students opting to learn remotely, will they be able to pick things up like their math and focus workbooks or similar things at the start of the school year? Or will everything need to be posted to the Google Classroom?
Those are all the things that we are working out. It's going to be perfect by the start of school, but right now we're working all of that out. But yes, if they're going to be remote full-time, somehow they need to get their Chromebooks and all their materials. So we will get that to them, or somehow magically.
The next question is from Aaron Lumpkin. If the students are bringing the Chromebooks back and forth, will they be issued some sort of protective sleeve, or do we need to order one ourselves?
We have sleeves.
We have cases for all of the Chromebooks.
This is Kelly Kane. If a child will be learning remotely, will there be an opportunity for that child to be introduced in person to its teacher at the beginning of the year?
I'm assuming that is an opt-out scenario.
That's what it sounds like, yes.
I'm not sure how that would work. In all honesty, I'd have to think about that. If you're going to go straight out, it would perhaps be nice to have that opportunity. I honestly would have to think about what that would look like and what would be how that may play out. At the moment, I'm reluctant to say yes to that because again, I just don't want people coming and going. But we'll give some thought to that. I'm curious if anybody else is reflecting on that question there. Who answered that question? Who asked that question?
Kelly Kane.
Kelly, well, thank you for the question. I don't have that one at the tip of my tongue. I kind of live in both quarters with that one, or both halves in terms of both sides of the fence with it a wee bit. But I can't have groups of kids just coming in for one day and leaving again. But at the same time, I understand the request that it would be nice to make the connection before we actually go like this. So and that's reasonable too. So we'll get back to that answer.
This is from Ellen Gould. How will you manage mask breaks, recess, etc., and maintain social distancing when it's too cold to go outside?
Each building has become even more intimately aware of their square footage and the rooms in their building that still might be available. And so we'll be analyzing our square footage, what those large group gathering spaces will be, where they're not going to be previously scheduled for some other group instruction or some other activity. And we'll be looking at those spaces as opportunities for 6 feet apart, mask break and the like within the building on inclement weather days.
Mr. Tremberg, if we could perhaps take another 3 questions.
There's a couple of questions that are coming up with specials, and are we considering having specials inside the classrooms of the elementary, of the homeroom teacher?
Yes, the art and Spanish and library will take place in the classroom. Music will take place in a larger space. And PE, if possible, will take place outside. If not possible, then we may be able to have activities within the classroom or within the gym, depending on what schools have available in terms of space.
There are some questions that have come up also about if parents do plan to opt out after hybrid, how do they complete the survey that went home? And the answer to that is let us know that you're returning for hybrid. And then when the time comes, there'll be an opportunity to work with your administrator to let them know you're not coming back. The survey is designed to help us prepare for September 3rd. And this is the third final question of the day. This is from Sarah Walsh Martin. Will all gym classes be outside if weather permits?
Yes.
Plan.
We're hoping for a lot of very good weather.
So with that, if I may, to my parents,
Adley, before you close, may I ask just a gentle reminder before you close, Dr. Adley?
of course.
For all those families who, in a follow-up to your communication on Friday, where you shared the schedule for meetings for those families who have students who receive specially designed instruction and or related services. The meeting is scheduled for the elementary families on Friday, this Friday, the 21st, and that's at 12 o'clock. And there will be a link to follow that you'll receive as an invite. So we look forward to seeing all of you then. Thank you.
To my colleagues here on the Zoom here, they've been on a Zoom practically all day long on different meetings. So just you may need to disconnect for a wee bit. To our community members at home, thank you for tuning in today on YouTube Live. I hope you find this helpful. It has been helpful to us to hear back contextually what's on your mind. And for any questions that were not answered, we will get them to you and also post them on the website. If I may remind you, if you didn't have a chance to see the health and safety workshop with our resident experts, our director of health and our district medical advisor, I think that was very helpful. We will post that. I don't know if it's posted right now, but I'll certainly check. That'll get posted this evening and no later than tomorrow morning. It would be on the communication section of the reopening section. So I would encourage you to look at that because I think a lot of the questions you're asking around health and safety, David Knopf and Dr. Kennefick did a very nice job framing those for us along with Alicia. So with that, I'm going to bid people farewell. Thank you again for joining us, to our community members and to my staff. I appreciate your time today. And as we move forward here, this is a wee partnership in terms of what you do at home impacts whether our students and kids can actually come to school, and what we do in school impacts what happens back home. So the more we work collaboratively together on this, and particularly down the stretch of the next couple of weeks, the better experience our children will have. So with that, I thank you for your collaboration and support, and we look forward to talking to you along the way. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.